So you don't need to be famous to get booked. You just need to be found. You need to be clear. You need to be consistent, right? And your LinkedIn profile is so much more than a bio, it's your stage. I'm Sylvie Garibaldi, founder and CEO of a well established marketing training and done for you services company, tailored specifically for the modern legal and financial professional worldwide. While it's taken some trial and error to figure out which methods get the best results for professionals who are looking to grow their practices, fast forward to today, my team and I have nailed down and perfected a process that has helped so many of our clients consistently achieve outstanding results and create a legacy for their practices. I created the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast to give you simple, actionable, non-salesy, and results-driven marketing to grow your legal or financial practice like so many of our clients have. If you're a lawyer, mediator, financial, or divorce professional who is looking to become highly visible and wants to create a practice that makes an impact, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 70 of the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast. I'm your host, Sylvie Garibaldi. Did you know that a high proportion of event organizers use LinkedIn to scout speakers? So they're not using their inbox, they're not using Google, not some secret speaker database. They're just simply using LinkedIn. But here's the twist. Most professionals aren't even in the running, not because they're not qualified, but because their LinkedIn presence doesn't position them as someone who's worth booking. So if you've ever said, wow, I'd love to speak at that conference, or I just don't know how to get noticed, this episode is going to be your roadmap because I'm going to be actually showing you how to turn your LinkedIn profile into a high converting speaker portfolio. So it's not just going to be a resume and not just another professional profile. It's actually a dynamic scroll stopping presence that makes event organizers think, this person is worth us taking a listen to, or we need this voice on our stage. So you'll learn how to craft a profile that gets you found, what kind of content signals book me now, and the behind the scenes tactics that real speakers use to build trust with organizers before they even send a pitch. And so my goal today is to make this as simple so that you can start implementing this right away. So whether you're just starting to build visibility or maybe you've already spoken locally and you want to scale it up, this could be your next level. So remember, this isn't just about going viral. It's about becoming visible to the right people for the right opportunities. So let's begin with the single most overlooked asset in your speaking strategy, and that is your LinkedIn profile. And it's not your website, it's not your resume, it's not your speaker one sheet, it's actually your LinkedIn. Why? Because it's public, and believe it or not, it's very searchable. And it's where event organizers live. They spend so much time on LinkedIn. But I think the reality is that most professionals, they treat LinkedIn like an online business card, almost like a resume. It's static and it's invisible to the very people making those speaker decisions. So if you want to get booked, your profile needs to do three things. And that's what I want to talk about right now. The first is to tell organizers that you're a speaker. The second is to showcase the value of your message. And the third is to build trust that you're actually stage ready. So I want to break this down so you can understand how this works. So step one is to nail the headline. So think like your name badge at a high level conference. So you've got one line to say who you are and why you matter. So I want you to skip the generic titles. Instead, use high intent words that match what organizers are searching for. So for example, you could say divorce mediator, and then you can put another subset, putting speaker, or you can put conflict resolution strategist, and then family law keynote, right? So using a couple of words to describe what you do, but then also that you're a speaker as well, because these are the words the key words that they're going to be searching for. So these headlines really position you immediately, not just as a professional, but as a speaker with a clear domain of expertise. So step two is you want to write a summary that sells. So this is the about section. And I can't stress how prime real estate this is on LinkedIn. But most people just use it to talk about their credentials. And what organizers really want to see is your point of view. So here's a simple three-part framework you can use. One is you want to talk about who you help, right? Pretty simple. You want to explain how you help them and then what you speak about. So those are three things. That's the three-part framework that you want to include. So for example, you could say, I help families navigate high conflict divorces with empathy. I'm available to speak on collaborative law, mediation trends, and conflict resolution. So what you're doing here is it's clear, it's relevant, and it immediately positions you as someone worth listening to. Step three is you want to turn that featured section into a digital stage. So, how do you do that? This is where you move from interesting to bookable because the featured section is your visual pitch deck, right? And most professionals don't even use it. So, here's what I want you to consider including. So you could include a short speaker reel. It can be a 60-second Zoom clip. That works, plain and simple, right? Organizers, they want to actually see how you sound. Super important. A testimonial graphic or a video from someone who's heard you speak. That's actually like third-party credibility and is total gold. So if you can have any of that, put that in there. Put links to relevant articles that you've written or have been featured in. This establishes credibility. You can also include speaking topics. So it's just simply a PDF, clean, branded, and downloadable. Just make it easy for organizers to imagine you in their agenda. And so this one section can be the difference between a profile that gets ignored and one that gets booked. So I highly recommend you take these tips and start using them immediately. Step 4 is visual consistency builds trust. So organizers are actually scanning dozens of profiles, and you need to make yours visually trustworthy. So how do you do that? You want to have a high quality professional headshot. You want to use a background banner that's at the top. And that's free real estate. You need to use that, right? So use a background banner that reinforces your speaking topics or brand. You can even use your name plus add in the niche that you support, and then you can add in the word speaker as well as a clean graphic. So that actually increases perceived professionalism. So think about how to use that real estate to your benefit. And step 5 is to update your contact information. And I know this sounds pretty simple and basic, but please double check it. Can someone reach out to you in one click? Super important, right? So add your email, add a Calendly link for quick intro calls, make the outreach frictionless, okay? Super important, and so many people miss this. Okay, now that your profile positions you as a speaker, it's time to make your presence felt. But here's the truth. Your content is your audition tape, okay? Every post is a signal. Or it could be silence too. So it's super important to get this right because event organizers aren't just reading bios, they're actually scanning LinkedIn feeds. Okay. So they want proof. Can you hold attention? Do you have a message worth sharing? Can you make an audience think differently? And if your feed answers yes, then you're not pitching, you're actually attracting. So LinkedIn isn't just where they find you, it's where they evaluate you. So you want to build a content system that tells them everything they need to know without ever having to pitch. And I know we do this at SG and Associates all the time. We get people approaching us to speak on their stage consistently. Why? Because they are scanning our feed and they're seeing information that they find valuable. But more importantly, it's a message that actually holds their attention. And that's why we are being approached consistently. So super important. You need to make sure that your content is really holding their attention and it's getting them to stop and read. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about how you can make this possible. So, if you want to get booked as a speaker, you want to show, you just don't want to tell, right? And we know that video is a very powerful visibility tool because no amount of written content can replace the experience of hearing you speak. So whether it's video or a podcast or some kind of audio, think about using those tools. And here's the best part. You don't need expensive equipment to do this, right? Just your phone, natural light, and a message worth sharing. So when you are filming, you can film a quick tip based on a trending topic. You can share a 60-second myth busting post. So, for example, mediation is not just for amicable couples. Here's why. This is what you need to know. You could do a story from the courtroom or a mediation session. Really cool, right? A reaction to recent news in your niche. Share it, right? And so you can do this very quickly. So, if you're nervous about doing video or audio, use a teleprompter app if you want it to be scripted. You want to record it vertically for mobile, and you always want to keep it short and punchy, like under 90 seconds. Probably 60 seconds will do the trick. And remember that your tone matters. Speak like you would on stage. You want it to be warm, you want it to be confident and clear. Clear is super important because if you're not speaking in a way that people get, you'll actually lose your audience. Okay. And here's a pro tip. End every video with a call to action. You can say something like, "Are you interested in having me speak at your next event? Let's connect." Right? So, whatever you're looking to achieve in that video, make sure you have a strong call to action. So, the second part of this is thought leadership articles. So, you really want to establish intellectual authority. So, how do you do that? And I think articles or newsletters on LinkedIn are your chance to go deeper. So, they're not just posts, they're almost like public white papers, and they're packaged for a busy audience. And I might add here as well that you don't have to just use the LinkedIn platform for this. You can take them off the platform and maybe make a lead magnet and get them to download the lead magnet from LinkedIn. Okay. But here's the repeatable structure that works. You want to have a headline with urgency. Okay. So maybe it's like 3 trends transforming divorce law in 2025 that you must learn about. So you always want to lead with a client insight or industry tension. You want to offer a perspective, not just facts, right? So close with an open-ended question or next step. So here are some content ideas that you can use, right? Why every high-asset divorce needs a mediation first approach. How to handle custody disputes without escalation. You can even talk about the future of ADR, maybe AI, virtual hearings. Here's what comes next. Like, think about what your audience wants to hear. These articles don't just educate, they demonstrate that you're thinking at a strategic level, which is exactly what event organizers want in a keynote. And so here is a bonus. You can actually turn this article, if you wanted to, into a carousel post. So, which would be like 5 to 7 slides. You can turn it into an infographic. You can create a video summary, right? One article, 3 content pieces, and now you've created infinite shelf life. Okay, I hope this is making sense. All right, part 3 or step 3 of what you want to do here is what we call behind the scenes content that actually humanizes your brand. So most professionals think that their work isn't interesting, it's boring. There's nothing really to talk about or to post about. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because what seems routine to you is remarkable to people outside of your profession, and especially to organizers looking for speakers who own their process. So here are some examples of behind the scenes posts. You could talk about 3 non-negotiables I use when building a session on conflict resolution, or what I do the night before I speak, rituals, mindset, prep, etc. Right? So those are behind the scene posts or examples of things just to kind of humanize your brand. I'm trying to give you some examples here. You don't have to use this, but just kind of getting you to think outside of the box. So these posts build emotional connection, and they show professionalism, and they reinforce that you're stage ready. Okay, so step 4 is testimonials, mentions, and milestones. So you want to create social proof. So don't wait for big events to promote your value. Use everyday wins to build a trail of credibility. So how do you do that? Here are some ideas. You can post a quote from someone who attended your last webinar. You can screenshot a DM that says, "Your post helped me handle my divorce better," and then you can actually erase their name. You can share a milestone. Just booked my 10th event of the year, deeply grateful. So these aren't humble brags, right? They're just validation, and validation builds trust. So step 5 is consistency. So you don't need to go viral here. You just need to show up strategically every week. So here's an example of a 3-post weekly structure. You can do a video tip, which allows them to see your speaking presence. And then another time you can write a insight or story. And what this does is this helps to demonstrate your expertise and emotional intelligence. And then your third post could be something like an article, a carousel, or a testimonial that shares thought leadership or proof. So all you need to do is set aside 1 to 2 hours per week, batch your content, use scheduling tools if needed. And the goal here is to just create a content signal. It's a signal that speaks to organizers consistently. And if your profile says I'm a speaker, then your content needs to say, here's why I get invited back, right? So don't wait for invitations, earn them. And you can earn them one post at a time, but you need to be deliberate with this approach. So I want to be clear. Speaking engagements don't come from luck. They come from relationships. And the smartest professionals aren't waiting to be discovered. They're actually connecting intentionally with the exact people who decide who gets on stage. And this isn't about cold DMs. This is about becoming visible to the right people at the right time in the right way. And LinkedIn makes it super easy. It's easier than ever to do this right now. So the best way to get started in doing this reach out is that most professionals will tend to wait for a call for speakers post. And what I'm saying to you is don't do that. Don't wait, because by then you're already behind. So here's how to get ahead of the curve. You want to use LinkedIn's search bar to look for hashtags. So maybe you want to speak at the next ADR conference or a family law summit. So type in the hashtags in LinkedIn's search bar. So maybe hashtag ADR conference or hashtag divorce summit, whatever it is. Think about what those hashtags could be and put them into the search bar. Visit past events pages and check who posted recaps, photos, or panel quotes. That's going to be another great way to find event organizers. And then, of course, the key job titles to look for when you are searching on LinkedIn would be events director, program coordinator, community manager, those sorts of things. And what you need to know is that these are the gatekeepers. So follow them, engage with them, and don't ask for anything yet, right? Just follow them first. And so, the next thing you want to do is before you actually ask for a stage, you need to prove that you're worth their time. So what do I mean by this? So you want to leave thoughtful, non-generic comments on their posts. And you can share their upcoming event with your own network and tag them saying, looking forward to attending this, excellent lineup by, and then you put the organizer's name, right? So that's a nice touch that tells them that you're generous, you're sending their upcoming event information out, and you will be noticed. They will notice who you are, okay? The next thing you want to do is you want to direct message them with value, right? People appreciate it when you are complimenting them sincerely. So you can say something like, I really appreciated your session on XYZ. I would love to support future events however I can, right? So starting the conversation, opening the door to conversations. And what this does is this positions you as a collaborative person, not just transactional. And it really just allows you to commence future conversations with this person. Super important. A lot of people miss out on that. And so once there's some mutual awareness, then you can take a step further, right? And so here's where you want to make sure that you're creating a respectful and effective outreach. And you could do this through a message of some kind. So you can say something like, "Hi, name. I've been following your work around on this topic." That's where you're going to insert the topic. "And I wanted to say how valuable your recent post was on," and you're going to insert what that was. "I speak regularly on," you're going to insert your niche, your topic, especially as it relates to, and you're going to insert the pain point or problem solution. "If you're ever looking for speakers in that area, I'd love to explore how I might contribute." Okay. So pay attention to the structure here. This message is divided into 4 sections, really. First is relevance. You're going to build in relevance. The second is proof of interest, right? Because you're going to talk about a pain point that you know their audience is experiencing. You're going to layer in specific positioning, and then you're going to end with a soft pitch, right? So it's not about asking for a favor. It's about determining if there's a fit here. Okay. So I think that change in mindset is super important because most people go in thinking, oh, they're going to think that I'm trying to sell them something. I'm sounding too salesy. You need to reverse your thinking and evaluate this and say, I'm not asking for a favor. I'm trying to add value here. And right now, I'm just trying to determine if there's a fit. And you want the organizer to determine whether it's a fit as well. That's all you're trying to establish here. So if you really want to get on someone's radar fast, here's how you can do this. You can actually create something with them. So what do I mean by this? So you can invite an organizer to maybe co-author something with you on LinkedIn. So maybe a post, an article, right? It could be something like the future of legal conferences post 2025. That's if you want to get yourself booked on a legal conference to speak, right? You can ask to interview them on a LinkedIn Live or a podcast episode. Super easy to do. And then you can recap their event in a post and tag them. People really appreciate that because you're helping them promote the event. So you can say, "Grateful to this organizer for curating such a needed discussion on," and then you insert the topic. "I'm already applying ideas from this session," and then you tag them. So you're no longer just networking, you're building shared credibility. Okay, see how that can work? That's a really powerful way. If you just took this alone, this idea alone is gold. So really think about how you can build this in. And by the way, if you're finding this episode valuable, please don't forget to check out all of the links to our other episodes. We're going to actually link some more in the show notes so that you can find more resources on the topics that matter most to this episode. We always like to link them together. So feel free to check those out in the show notes. Okay. So let's talk about how to become unforgettable. And I want to talk about how to do this, the follow through, because even if the first conversation doesn't lead to a stage, your name still should stay top of mind, right? So you want to use your CRM or a simple spreadsheet, and you want to track. You want to be able to see who you've engaged with, when you last interacted, and notes about their interests or event cycles. And then periodically, you want to re-engage with something relevant, right? So, thought this article on mediation might align with your next event theme. Hope this helps. Or saw the call for speakers for 2026. Would love to contribute if you're curating family law panels. So these are examples to just show how you can re-engage with them. But you want to track and you want to know who they are and when you last engaged with them, right? That's going to be really important. So here's the mindset shift. You're not just chasing stages here. You're building relationships with the people who build the stages, right? So you want to be helpful. You want to be visible. You want to be consistent because the right outreach just doesn't get you booked. It gets you remembered. So I want to talk about one of the most powerful forces in getting booked as a speaker, and that is social proof, okay? Because you can have the sharpest insights, the cleanest profile, and the most thoughtful outreach. But what truly convinces organizers is evidence that you've done this before. So it's social proof, right? And what social proof says is that you've spoken, you're valuable, and people were better because of it. Okay. And when you combine that with strategic promotion, you don't just look credible, you look like the obvious next speaker that they should hire. So, how do you go about this? So, you want to make your past work for you. So, every time you speak, whether it's on a local panel, a virtual workshop, or a bar association event, you should be documenting this. Okay. So, here's how to turn one event into 3 visibility moments. So, you don't have to speak on so many stages in order to do this. So, you can post a photo or a short video clip with a caption like, honored to speak at this event on navigating high conflict divorces. Powerful audience questions and so grateful for the opportunity. Simple. One post. Second thing you can do is you can pull one quote from your talk and actually turn it into a standalone post or carousel. High asset divorce isn't just about money, it's about mindset. And then, thirdly, you can use a follow up post to share audience feedback. So that's 3 ways right there that you can leverage your talk and create 3 separate posts or opportunities on LinkedIn. And you're not just showing that you're booked, you're actually showing that you delivered, right? And that's the difference. So the next thing you can do is you want to really leverage the testimonials. So we know that testimonials are gold and most speakers don't collect them proactively, but here's a simple system to start. After a talk, message the organizer or a few attendees and say, hey, if anything from my talk stood out or helped, I'd be grateful for a quick LinkedIn message or a quote that I can share. You can save standout comments from chat transcripts, right? DMs or emails. That's a really great way to do that. I use that all the time when we do workshops and webinars. You can turn one sentence testimonials into graphics or quote cards, and you can always tag the person with permission and link to the event recap or clip. So even one authentic quote from a past event really helps. So something like, Mary's keynote completely reframed how I manage mediation sessions. Just a simple quote like that can drive massive credibility when used right. So please don't forget about that. And you don't want to just promote the event after it's done. You really should start early. Position yourself as part of something important. Okay. And here's a great timeline to use: 2 weeks before, 1 week before, day of. And what you're doing is you're building visibility and you're reminding organizers that you're active, that you're in demand, and that you're current. Okay. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're still creating the momentum, even when the event is over. The content has just begun because you can share a video clip of your best line or insight. You can tag the event and organizers with a thank you. You can use it as a springboard for new posts, right? Here's the one slide everyone took a photo of during my talk. One surprising audience question from XYZ event and how I answered it. Think about those springboard posts, okay? I've just given you 2 great examples. And what you're doing here is you're extending the life of that speaking engagement, plain and simple. And here's a bonus strategy. You can repurpose those slides and you can put it into a downloadable PDF. 5 insights from my recent talk at the National ADR Summit. That's just as a quick example. And use it as a lead magnet, okay? So you can also make social proof ongoing and not occasional, right? And so the key thing here is don't wait for those big moments. Those micro moments are just as important. So you want to post when you're invited to speak. You can post when you're prepping to speak. You can post when you're reflecting on a talk. And you can post when someone else mentions your talk, right? So always think about how you can repurpose your talk into a new format. And what this does is it creates rhythm. It creates really good rhythm. And this is where event organizers are going to continue to learn about you and see you as a future speaker. Okay. I hope this is making sense. I've shared so much gold with you in this episode today, and I hope you take advantage of it. So event organizers, they don't just want to take risks. They want to look to book professionals with a proven track record. So social proof is the way to do that. So consider that. So hopefully by now you've got the full framework. So you have a profile that positions you, content that convinces, relationships that convert, and proof that performs. Okay. So I'm going to be honest with you. Consistency is hard. I get it. Even the best strategies can break down without systems in place. So this is going to be super important because getting booked once is exciting, but creating momentum, that's going to be even more important. And that's really what builds a true thought leadership brand. So I want to share with you some tools and some tactics that can make this all happen for you without burning out. So you don't want to rely on memory. You want to rely on systems, right? So use a CRM or a spreadsheet, track those event organizers that you've engaged with, follow up with reminders, and send messages and responses. Super, super important. And once again, hashtags. Use hashtags. Do some research on LinkedIn to stay visible in the right circles, right? As I mentioned, LinkedIn search filters are gold mines. So search for hashtags. Maybe it's like hashtag family law summit or hashtag legal innovation. Find out what those hashtags are and then engage and comment on them, right? That's a great way to start the conversation. And the more you show up where event discussions are happening, guess what? The more natural your visibility becomes. Okay. And then you want to batch your evergreen content. Make sure you can use LinkedIn has a scheduling system already on the platform, but this just gives you breathing room, right? And then you can mix in real time engagement, maybe add in current legal events or breaking news. But using the scheduling feature in advance, this is going to be important. And then layering in those real time posts. And you want to track what gets traction, right? So pay attention to data, not just your intuition. LinkedIn gives you the analytics. Who's engaging with your content? Which job titles are viewing your profile? What content is performing best? Okay. And here's what to look for. Are organizers, conference hosts, or firm partners interacting? Are video posts or articles getting more views? Are certain hooks or formats driving more DMs, right? So use this and refine your voice, sharpen your message, double down on what works. And I think it's important to also create some kind of go to folder. So the go to folder is an opportunity that you can use over and over again. So you can include things like your updated speaker one sheet, maybe a short reel or speaking clip, PDF of topics and formats, ready to outreach email template, links to articles or testimonials. Very simple, right? So you want to host it maybe on a Google Drive or Dropbox and share it with one click, right? This way, people have access to the whole folder. And this one system shortcut can shave hours off every opportunity and make you look polished and prepared. So you don't need to be famous to get booked. You just need to be found. You need to be clear. You need to be consistent, right? And your LinkedIn profile is so much more than a bio. It's your stage. Your content is so much more than marketing. So here's your action plan. Update your headline, make it speaker focused, post one short video in your niche this week, comment on 3 event related posts from organizers, add one testimonial or speaking clip to your featured section, and build a speaking topics one pager and keep it ready. Okay, I know I shared so much in this episode, but really, visibility creates momentum. And this is why I'm sharing this information with you, because I want you to succeed and know that credibility earns trust. But action is what really turns strategy into results. So, it's super important that you don't wait for that perfect moment, that you don't wait for the invite. I want you to create the moment, position yourself, and show up. So if this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn and let me know which strategy you're going to try first. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with a colleague who you think needs to hear it. And if you want more in-depth strategies, subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. It's been my pleasure to serve you today. Thanks for tuning in and see you in the next episode.